Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. It is wonderful to be here. And I am thrilled because I just enrolled another wonderful woman in my 12-week emotionally naked dating coaching program. She is, I believe, 76 years old, if you can believe that. And what a beautiful, magical, incredible woman she is. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about this woman. She is remarkable. It's lovely to see everybody. And I want to, this is my lunch with Lisa. So it is wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm Lisa Shield. I do these every single Monday at noon Mountain Time. So please come on and join me. Let's all have lunch together. And I am here to answer your questions about all things dating, men, romance, relationship related. So please come and join me and bring your questions if you can. There are 4 of you there. I would love to know who's listening. Hi, Rhonda. It's great to see you. So today I want to talk to you about something my husband and I talked about over the weekend. How many of you saw our amazing Facebook Lives that we're doing on Sundays, where we talk about all the things that Benjamin and I talk about privately? We talk about those things on Sundays. We dig in and we keep it real. It's called Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. Rhonda has her hand up. Yay, Rhonda. Hey, Wendy, good to see you. I think you were on the live with Benjamin on Sunday. We had a great chat. This week was all about the things that men are afraid to tell women, that they're afraid that if they tell us these things, we're going to lose it. And so that's what this particular chat was about. So I'm going to share today a little bit about my story. I want to talk a little bit about me because that's my favorite subject. This is my favorite subject. It's the one I know best of all. I want to share. I think a lot of women out there, they see me today and it's like, "Oh, you got it all. You're living the dream. You've got a great husband. You have a wonderful life." And I think it's very easy for people to look from the outside in and think that this is all easy for me because they're seeing me now and they don't know what I went through to get here. Origin stories are always fascinating. And I think it's really important to understand that this is not how my life was. I actually became a coach. Hey, Bonnie, great to see you. Hello. I hope you had a great weekend. So, origin stories are always really fascinating. And it's important when you're looking at people to have somebody like me, a coach who has a wonderful life and is really living a dream in a way, to understand that this is not how it always was for me. This is not where I started. In fact, I became a love coach because this was the most challenging part of my life. In fact, there was a time where I really did think I was going to grow old alone. I never thought this was going to happen for me. I watched other women, all my girlfriends, women around me, having a much easier time of this than I did. I remember sitting in high school and looking around at women, the other girls at school, and it was gut wrenching for me. I didn't feel pretty. I felt kind of like an outcast. I struggled with my weight when I was younger. Um, and I just had no self confidence. I really was deeply insecure. And I'm telling my origin story for anybody who's dropping in. Um, I really was deeply insecure, and I thought that this would never, ever, ever happen for me. In fact, growing up, um, I had very few boyfriends. I look back now and I think, wow, I really did have men that were interested in me. But because I was so deeply insecure, I really didn't believe that anybody could want to be with me. I would look around at all the little girls, all the other kids at school, and I would think they were so much prettier. They had it all going on. They were way more popular than me. And I couldn't even fathom that any little boy would ever want to be with me. Now that I look back and I see things with fresh eye, more, with being more mature. And I'm looking back and I see, wow, there were some opportunities and I just was so shut down. I was terrified. I don't know if any of you relate to this at all, but I know that I was terrified if a boy or a guy at school did pay attention or show interest in me. I was scared to death to even, get close, or I didn't know what they wanted to talk about. I pushed guys away because I couldn't even imagine that these guys would have an interest in me. There was a very, very cute boy at school who was when I was young, I think I was in junior high school, and he was darling. His name was Scott Anderson. He was so cute, blonde hair. He had like blonde, long hair. Very, very cute guy. He was a little shorter than me. And I he was really interested in me. My girlfriend Jackie had a birthday party or something, and you know how little kids are. Because he was shorter, he wanted to kiss me at the party, so he had arranged to be on some steps, some stairs, so that he could be a step higher than me, and so that we could kiss. And I was just so insecure that I avoided him all night so this wouldn't happen. And he wound up becoming the boyfriend of my friend Jackie. And Jackie was one of the cutest girls in school. She was super popular. And I thought, I told myself he was shorter and he wasn't good enough. And I made up all these stories. And then the two of them became an item. And then I regretted, I regretted that I never let that happen. And so I don't know how many of you have ever had experiences like that looking back, but I was so afraid. And then I had another boyfriend or another guy who was interested in me. And we met and, we went on a date. And then I was so insecure that I made up all these stories about why he wasn't good enough for me. And I never, he called me, he wanted to see me again. Hey, Rachel, I saw your fabulous email about, or a Facebook post about all the wonderful responses that you're getting to your profile. That was so exciting to read. I'm really thrilled to hear that. So I was so insecure that I had all these missed opportunities looking back over my past. And I realized that it's not that the men or that there weren't guys interested in me. It's that I was so deeply insecure that I pushed these guys away. They couldn't get close to me because I wouldn't let them. I was so scared. I didn't even know, looking back, what to talk to a guy about. I didn't even know what they wanted from me. So it was really sad. Anyway, I wound up marrying the first man who really paid attention to me all through high school. I never had a boyfriend. Um, I never went to prom. It was really, really hard looking back. And I always felt like other girls had some kind of magic that I just didn't have. So I married the first man who paid attention to me, who I really hit it off with. And that was, we met in grad school. We were going to a school called Brooks Institute, and both of us were studying photography together. And he was the most popular guy in class. He was not a good looking guy, but he was very charming. and he was an exceptional photographer. And again, I was so insecure. It just felt like we got to be, kind of the it couple in this small community at our grad school in photography school. And it was really exciting to be his girlfriend and for the two of us to be going through grad school together. And looking back, it's like I don't even know what I was thinking. But at the time, I was so excited. And it turned out that this guy, my ex husband, who I spent 13 years with, he was a pathological liar. In fact, when I called his mother to tell her that we were getting divorced, her first comment to me was, I told her that he was constantly having money problems and, he was dishonest. And I started telling her what was going on. Her first comment to me was, "Oh, I had hoped he'd changed." So she knew him. She knew that he was a liar. She knew, of course, she was his mother. She knew what was going on. But I stayed in that marriage. And here's the thing, every day I was married to him, I told myself I could do better. I told myself, Lisa, you can do better. He's not on your level. You're settling. You just need to leave. And I couldn't leave him. I couldn't leave. I was scared to death to leave him. He was my whole world. And I was so deeply codependent and insecure that I stayed with him for 13 years. And I finally got up the nerve to leave. We were both photographers, fashion photographers. I had moved to Milan, Italy, and he followed me there. And I was there for a total of 7 years, and I was just stuck and I became so afraid. I couldn't get my life together. I don't know if any of you have ever been stuck in your lives. If you've ever really been stuck, but it is the worst feeling in the world. It is the worst feeling. Like I was not moving forward on any front, not in my career, not in my love life, not in my life. And I started to realize that there was something seriously wrong. And I became so frightened that my ex husband was going to leave me that I went into the dark room and I started printing. And I spent about 3 months in the dark room, just, I don't know, when people are, it was crazy because I was literally and figuratively in the dark. And when people are trying to self-soothe, they rock. And so there I was in the dark room printing, exposing the paper to light, and then I'd put it in the chemicals and I'd rock the trays. And as I was rocking these trays, I was processing my life. I was trying to figure, I was basically being my own therapist. And I had this voice that was outside of me, and it was asking me the same kinds of questions that a therapist would ask. And one of the questions I asked myself was, Lisa, why are you always so sad? Because I was sad. A girlfriend of mine had some pictures of me, and a friend of hers looked at them and she said, "Wow, is your friend always so sad?" Because I guess I looked really depressed in the photographs. And I realized, yes, I was always so sad. And I asked myself, why are you always so sad? And the answer that came back to me was, Lisa, you're sad because when your mother was dying of breast cancer, she died when I was 15, you told yourself you'd always be sad. And then I thought, wow, that worked. I made up I told myself I'd always be sad and I'm sad. And then I said, well, I don't want to be sad anymore. I don't want this to be the rest of my life. And then I said to myself, well, Lisa, you made that story up. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to make up a different story because I don't want to be sad forever. And so I said, well, I'll make up the story that I'm wiser because I lost my mother when I was 15. And then I thought, wow, I'd rather be wise than sad. And then the next thought was, well, you made that up. And then I thought, oh my God, we make it all up. And that was my big breakthrough. I started to realize that life was just this story we were telling ourselves, and we could make it good or we could make it bad. And both things may be true. Like I was sad when my mom died, but I was also wiser. And I had a choice which story I wanted to focus on. And as I came to that realization, I started to see that I had the power to create my life and change my story. So I vowed when I was in the dark room, I said to myself, Lisa, you're going to look for the positive outcomes and everything. And you're going to start to tell positive stories, because when you tell positive stories, you feel good. And when you tell negative stories, you feel bad. And so I started telling positive stories. Hi, Dallin. It's good to see you. I'm telling my origin story if you want to stick around and hear a little bit about how I got to where I am. And so then I just, these breakthroughs started coming one after another. And I started to see that I had been a victim in my life, and I had been looking to other people to try to fix and change other people, to fix and change my ex husband. And I started to realize that I needed to take responsibility for myself, that I needed fixing, that I needed work, and that I had been focusing on my husband because I didn't want to look at myself. It was really, a lot less painful to focus on him than to look in the mirror and see myself, that I didn't have my life together. And I started to realize that we were on a sinking ship, and that we were both drowning, and I could only save one of us. And I realized the only person I could save was me. And as I started to really dig even deeper, I tried to imagine. One of the things that was really hard for me, because I was so scared to lose my husband, was to start to imagine a life without him. And so I said to myself, Lisa, what if this didn't work? What if you did lose him and you had to start your life over? What would that look like? What would be the first thing you'd do? And I started to think about what my life would look like without my ex husband. And little by little, I started to realize and dream this, life for myself without him. And I started to see that a lot of what was going on, a lot of what wasn't working for us was him. It wasn't all me. I wasn't the only failure. He had his own issues, and those issues were chronic, they were perpetual, they weren't changing. He wasn't growing either. And I started to realize, as I dreamed a life without him, I started to see or feel myself become lighter. I actually realized that he was a burden in my life, and that he was holding me down and holding me back. And I started to see that there were certain issues, especially regarding money, and his inability to get his financial part of the relationship under control, that were weighing me down. And as I started to think about a life without him, I actually felt lighter. And I could see this light at the end of the tunnel that hadn't been there before. Shortly after this period of printing and going into the dark room and having all of these breakthroughs, I was having a conversation with my ex-husband, and we were having an argument about money. And that same voice in my head that I talk about in my coaching program, I have a 12-week coaching program on how to find the guardian of your soul that I walk women through. And we talk about this voice in your head. And this voice is our guide. It's an inner guide that knows how to guide us to a new reality. And so that voice in my head said, Lisa, you're having the same argument about money that you've been having for the last 13 years. And that stopped me dead in my tracks. And I thought, oh my God, that's true. If I had a tape recorder and I could play a recording from 13 years earlier about an argument that we'd had about money, it would be the identical argument. We'd been having the same argument for 13 years. I kept trying to convince him that he needed to get it together and he would make excuses or tell me he was going to get a loan from his grandmother. But we had literally been playing out the same conversation, the same issue over and over and over again for 13 years. And I realized that even though we'd gone from Santa Barbara to LA to Milan, we'd really gone nowhere in our emotional growth and development. We were still stuck in the same place we were 13 years ago. We hadn't grown together at all. And midway in the middle of that conversation, I stopped and I looked at him and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And I said, you need to figure out what you're doing here. I'm going to go home. I'm going to leave Milan. I'm going to go back to the States and we're going to take a break. And you need to figure this out, but I can't keep doing this. The day I left, the day I packed my bags and went on a plane, I left. And the next day, our rent hadn't been paid in 6 months because I had refused to keep paying it. And our phone got turned off. So I couldn't even reach him if I wanted to. Rachel asked, were you afraid of his reaction? Did that keep me stuck? Rachel, I wasn't afraid of his reaction. I was terrified that if I left him, I'd be alone for the rest of my life. I mean, the truth was, even though I told myself every day I could do better, I was terrified because men had not really shown an interest in me up till that point. I didn't know how to really connect with men. I didn't know how to get emotionally naked and do some of the things that I'm able to do now. I didn't even know what men wanted from me. I was scared of men. My father had rejected me growing up. He wasn't there for me. He left my mother when I was 8 years old for another woman, and he showed absolutely no interest in me. So I had no connection with men whatsoever. And my ex husband was the first guy who'd ever paid attention to me. So I got up the courage to leave. And once I did, I never really looked back. And as I started moving forward, it became clearer and clearer to me that he was a pathological liar. My husband would borrow money from people and then not pay them back. He would then, once when it came time to reimburse somebody, he would literally turn it on them and make them the bad guy for asking for it back or whatever. But he just kept burning bridges and losing friendships, and he did that over and over again. I just couldn't see it when I was in it. I was too close to it. But once I got out of it and I started talking to some people and I started putting the pieces together, I started to see that he really was a pathological liar. And when I talked to his mother, that just made everything clear. There were a few stories that he told me about his childhood that weren't even true. And she said to me, oh, he told you that one, like he told you that lie, or he told you that story. And she, told me they were made up stories that never happened. So I got out of that marriage and I really started to put the pieces of my life together. I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where my brother and his family were also moving at the same time. It was really perfect timing. And I started my life over. I let go of my marriage. And I also let go of my career, my photography career. I decided that I was just going to completely start over. And it was literally like two divorces in one, cutting, changing careers and uh, letting go of my ex husband. That was huge. And so I completely started over here in Santa Fe and I started importing. I started a company, an importing company from Mexico. Did you take the attachment questionnaire? No, I didn't. I had no idea that, these were not things that we did then. This is stuff that's come to light much later, Bonnie, much, much, much later. If I had taken the attachment quiz, I would have I would have been avoidant. I may have actually had a true anxious avoidant. I may have been I really do think I was one of those rare people who was anxious avoidant. So I probably came out on both sides. I had a very difficult upbringing. My father was an alcoholic, and my mother died of breast cancer when I was very young. So I had almost no parenting, almost none. I was really on my own. By the time I was 21 years old, my mother's mother died, and I really had nobody, no one. So I had to figure this all out on my own. The attachment quiz, Lisa, there is a book called Attached. There's an aspect of psychology called attachment theory, and it basically says that there are four different kinds of attachments or intimacy styles. So there are people who are anxious, there are people who are avoidant, there are people who are rare, but some anxious avoidant people. And then there are people who are secure. And what we want to do is start to learn about our attachment style and how those things look and show up, those behaviors show up in our relationships, so that we can start to evolve into a securely attached person and attract another securely attached person. So when you have those anxious avoidant matches, which are quite common, that's where you get those really intense roller coaster relationships that are really, really, really awful, where people come together and break apart and come together and break apart. And, they're very emotional and there's a push pull. That's an anxious avoidant match. But it's very interesting. And there's a quiz that we can take both to see what our attachment style is and the attachment style of our partners or former partners. So I got out of that marriage and I started to put the pieces together. And that's when I really started to do anything and everything I could possibly find. If I found a course or a program or whatever that looked like it might have some answers, I did it. I did traditional therapy. I worked with the author of The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. My brother had found him here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I started doing some work with Miguel. Um, and that was brilliant. Liz is asking, how soon do you know if the person is not a secure attachment? Well, I would know immediately, Liz. It's just really educating yourself and doing the work to understand this. So, for both of you, Liz and Lisa, I this is one of the things that I do. The very first thing I do in my 12-week course is start to educate all of you on the anxious avoidant attachment styles and teach you how to become secure. This is detrimental. You all are out there dating, and just by these questions, you don't have all the pieces of this puzzle, and you're dating without all the right information. And you're literally throwing away precious years of your life that you'll never get back because you're lacking crucial information that would change this picture. You cannot go out there. All you're doing, if you don't know these things, you're essentially, literally, just playing the love lottery. If you don't know the difference between an anxious, avoidant, or secure person, you're hoping for a miracle. You're just hoping that you're going to get lucky and like Cupid's arrow is going to strike you and you're going to hit the right guy. And I'm not saying this in a critical way. I'm saying this because this is the kind of stuff that's holding all of you back that I teach. I can take your love lives and turn them around like that. I can teach you what it took me 8 years of my life to learn. I didn't wind up in this phenomenal, relationship because I got lucky. I wound up in this relationship because I did the work. Darlin, thank you for saying that I'm inspiring. Bonnie wrote, my story is similar to yours, but I had wonderful parents and my results were secure. I'm nervous about meeting men and knowing how to start dating, which is why, Bonnie, we need to get you started with my course. The one thing we don't have is time to waste. This is our most precious commodity. There's nothing in the world more precious than our time. You will never get these years back. Every minute that you are wasting, that you're not with the love of your life, you will never get that time back ever. Liz, it's great to read the book Attached. It's insightful, but if you read that book and you do not know how to go out and apply it, I am going to be honest. Information is not transformation. Just because you read a book and you go, oh gosh, that was such great information. If you do not know how to take what you learned from that book or from the Four Agreements or from any dating book or any self help book you read, you can have a library full of books. But if you do not know how to put that what you learn into practice, doesn't matter. You'll just keep reading book after book after book and get nowhere. If you really want to get this solved, go to lisashield.com and watch my 45-minute presentation and jump on a call with me. You all are spending time and energy. You're spending your lives going in circles, playing the love lottery and hoping for a miracle. If you don't know, start to finish, how to do this, you are going to spend years of your life out there troubleshooting and trying to solve this on your own. Why would you do that? Why, any smart, successful, savvy woman, if she's got an issue, if you have an issue at work, if there's a problem at work, you hire an expert to help you solve it. You don't sit there in the middle of your workday. If you've got computer problems, you don't sit there and learn how to become an IT person. You go hire a professional IT person to get the job done so that you're not doing that on your own and wasting time. You hire professionals to help you figure this stuff out. That's what I do. I know some of you, I see you coming on these calls over and over and over again, listening to me, hoping you're going to hear the magic thing. But it's not the information, it's the implementation of what you learn. It's being able to put that all into practice. So, back to my origin story. I worked with Don Miguel Ruiz. I went to the Landmark Forum. I even went to a 12-step program for food because I had a weight issue that was preventing me from having the confidence to meet men and feel sexy and like a man would be interested in me. So I did all of these things that I knew I had to do to feel good about myself. But here's the rub. I spent 6 solid years doing all kinds of personal growth work, and I still wasn't attracting higher quality men. I was still single, and the only thing that was happening was I liked myself better. I knew myself better. I was happier, but I still didn't have my guy. I was turning 40 and I woke up one day and I was like, this is unacceptable to me. I don't want to be 40 years old and single and dating in Los Angeles, California. I was a smart, savvy, successful single woman. And the one thing I knew was how to get things solved. And what I realized was reading more books, going to therapy, listening to, we didn't have YouTube videos at the time, but doing more research was not solving the problem. Online dating was brand new, just starting. It was in its infancy. I had a serious come to Jesus with Lisa Shield or Lisa Minkin at the time. And I said, look, girl, you got to take this seriously. You can't keep walking around the problem. You've got to face the problem. The problem was that I was terrified of men. Sure, I could go on a date and have a few cocktails and sit there and try to be charming. I could wear a pretty low cut blouse and I could, play with my necklace and run my fingers through my hair and I could touch his arm and do all of those things. But I really didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't know what men wanted and needed from me as a woman. I knew how to put on an act, but I didn't really know and understand men. So I got really smart. I decided to figure this out. I made a decision that I was going to start to study this. I was going to study men. I was going to learn about them, not the stuff that my girlfriends would tell me. Oh, well, men, all, men love the chase and play hard to get and, don't be too available. All of that is crap. That is such bullshit. And people tell us this stuff. You hear dating coaches, you hear men saying that stuff. It is such bullshit. I cannot even begin to tell you. It doesn't work. It's games, it's manipulation. What works is real internal transformation. So one of the things I started to look at was who am I as a woman? Who am I? What does it mean to be a woman to me? If I met a man and that I really liked, and that guy went on a date with me and he was sitting with his friend after the date and he was talking about me with his friend, what would I want him to say to that guy? What was the impression I wanted to leave on that man? As a woman, how would I sit on a date and really listen to a man? How would I make him feel when he walked away from that date like he couldn't wait to see me again? And not because I was sexy or putting on an act, but because he looked at me and said, wow, I felt like such a man in her company. I loved how she listened to me, how she talked to me, how she was with me. I loved her passion. I loved her sensuality. I started to study these things. I learned about getting emotionally naked, how to talk to men, how to say and do the things that men wanted to see and hear from the kind of women that they would want to marry. There is so much more to this than any of you think. You have these ideas that, you're just going to meet a guy and it's all going to fall into place because that's what your friends tell you. And then 3 years, 6 years, 10 years later, they're divorcing their husbands because it didn't work, because they didn't really understand how to have a real guardian of your soul relationship and make it last. You're looking at a woman who went on 96 first dates with 96 different men before I met my husband, Benjamin. I was willing to keep going and not quit. I was willing to go on date after date after date if that's what it took me to get this solved. Yes, I read books and I did work, but I applied it. I took what I was learning. I would spend an entire month just learning how not to take things personally. Every time something happened, I practiced not taking it personally, not letting, if a man ghosted me, I would wish him well. I might even send him a message and say, hey, I guess we're not a match. Thank you for your time. You're a lovely man. I wish you all the best. I would take the high road no matter what other people were doing. I might reach out to a man and say, I'm sorry, I haven't heard from you. I don't know if it's because you don't have time to date or you just didn't feel that we were a fit, but you really are a quality person. And I wanted to thank you for a wonderful date. You're the kind of man I'm looking for. Almost every single time I got a response, I learned not just to talk about how spiritual I was, I learned how to be spiritual. Didn't just talk about love or wanting love. I learned how to love. I learned how to be loving. I learned how not to judge men. I learned how to meet them heart to heart and understand that it is as hard for them as it is for us. I took risks. I took a lot of risks. I reached out to men at a time where people were saying, you have to sit back, you have to lean back, you have to let the man chase you. Bullshit. That was ridiculous. I met a man who was an imposter. He was a total avoidant. We met. I had met this man a year earlier at a friend's party. We knew the same people. He wrote to me when he broke up with his girlfriend and invited me on a date. It was the most incredible, magical date I'd ever been on in my life up until that point. And I thought, wow, maybe I've met my guy. 6 weeks later, after he told me he loved me and he wanted to have a relationship and he saw a future with me, 6 weeks later, I was walking out the door and not looking back. He was so avoidant. As soon as we really got close, he started pulling away. He got cold and distant. It was a nightmare. 6 weeks. In the past, I would have jumped into something like that. I would have tried to make it work. I would have taken it personally. I would have begged him to tell me what did I do wrong. I would have tried to, bend and mold and shape myself into the kind of woman I thought he wanted me to be. No, not this time. He told me I walked out. He called me the next day and said, I wanted to talk to you about what happened. And he started to tell me all the things he thought were wrong with me. I sat there and listened. And as I listened to him talking, I heard Don Miguel's words in the back of my mind. Miguel said to us, you should never have to justify or explain yourself to anybody. People will either get you or they won't. And I thought, God, this guy's a jerk. I mean, I don't mind getting feedback, but at least you can be nice about it. This guy was a jerk. He was saying, you're this and you're that, and you're self absorbed. And I was listening to him. And the whole time he was talking, I just thought, wow, this guy's a jerk. I don't even want to date somebody like this. And when he was all finished, I didn't even know what I was going to say, but I said to him, wow, you don't like me. It was all about himself. Exactly, Rhonda. I said, you don't like me." And he said, "Are you going to look at this stuff?" And I said, "I don't wanna have a relationship with someone who doesn't like me." And I said, "I'm gonna hang up the phone now." I said, "I wish you all the best, but I don't wanna do this." And I hung up the phone. And then a few days later, he sent me an email with more stuff. He had more time to think about all the awful things, and he wanted to pull me into a fight, and I wouldn't fight with him. And so he tried to pull me in, and I deleted the message. And then 2 weeks later, after I had read a book called Men Who Can't Love, this was before Attached. There is a brilliant book called Men Who Can't Love, and somebody had suggested this book to me, and I read it, and I really understood what was going on, and uh, I had his number by that time. I saw that this was a pattern with men, with people, and so, um, he wrote me a message and he said, "I always feel remorseful afterward," telling me that he's done this before. And he said, "You're really on your path. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a shining star." And I wrote to him after that and I said, "Look, I got to tell you, thank you for your message." I said, "It's not often that, you get such blatant confirmation from the universe that you're doing the right thing. I appreciate that." But I said, "I have to tell you, being in a relationship with you was wretched. It was horrible." And I said, "You really need to do some work on yourself." And I recommended that he read that book. I don't know if he ever did, but yeah. And then I went right back online. I put myself immediately right back online. And then about 2 months later, my husband contacted me and I read his profile. It was the most beautifully written profile I've ever read. I came to learn later that he spent about 6 weeks writing it, and he's a brilliant writer. He writes the dating profiles for the women in my course, and they get extraordinary responses from these profiles. If you think that men don't read your profile, think again. The good men, the quality men who value their time, they take the time to read the profiles. And not only do they read them, but these profiles elicit a very different kind of response from these men. So Benjamin's profile was outstanding, and I responded to him. He wrote me a message and he said, "Would you like to chance a dinner or, have a drink or whatever?" And I wrote him back. I was being funny. We didn't have emojis or emoticons at the time. I was actually being funny when I wrote this, but he did not know this. I sent him a message and I said, "Okay, Benjamin Shield, you made the first cut." He thought I had a list of criteria and I was checking off boxes. He called his best friend and said, "What does this mean I made the first cut?" He's like, "This woman's got criteria. What do I have to do to make the second cut?" But at least he really gave it a chance, and he wrote to her. We got on a phone call. I think we had one 5-minute phone call, and, I I said, "Look, I'm leaving. I'm going to Vietnam in a few days. So if you'd like to meet before I go, let's do it." And so we met at a little restaurant. He said, "Well, you're leaving, so let's just meet somewhere nearby." And I told him I mentioned a little restaurant, a Thai restaurant, right at the near my neighborhood. And I went to the restaurant for our first date, and he was, I think, at least like around 30 minutes late. We didn't, cell phones were brand new at the time. And so he actually had missed the turnoff to go up the street to my neighborhood. And he called the restaurant. He had gone all the way into East LA and he didn't have cell phone reception. And he finally called the restaurant and I um I was sitting there waiting and he got the restaurant on the phone and he said, "Is there a woman who's been sitting there for a while by herself? Could you please put her on the phone?" And so I got on the phone and he said, I got on the phone and he said that he had missed the turnoff and he was very apologetic. And at the time, I was reading The Power of Now, not at the restaurant, but I was reading that book concurrently. And there's a line in the book where Eckhart Tolle says, if somebody's running late, don't get upset. Just say to the person, it's okay. I'm just sitting here enjoying myself. And so I said to him, "Don't worry, I'll be here when you get here." And I said, "I'm just sitting here enjoying myself." And just ironically, my middle name happens to be Joy, and his mother's name was Joy, coincidentally. But I said, "I'll be here." And then he showed up, and in walked this man. He wasn't rushed or hurried, he was very present. And he walked up to me and he took both of my hands in his. I was sitting down. And most of the time we meet something and it's very perfunctory and it's, "Hi, how are you?" And we sit down and it's like you have your cup of coffee and hi, and you're getting down to business of that first meet and greet. No, not Benjamin. Benjamin walked in his own signature style. And I'm sitting down and he took both of my hands in his and he looked right into my eyes and he connected with me. And he said, "It is so nice to meet you." And he held my gaze and he looked right in my eyes. And then he sat down and the entire time he was present with me. I've never seen before or since someone who is so in the present moment, who's so focused and just there. When you're with Benjamin, it's just the rarest thing to see someone like this. And he said there was something, not just the way I handled the phone call when he was late, which was the first thing that made him really stop and think, who is this woman? She's different, she's special. But the second thing was he asked me, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "I have been working so hard on myself," which I had been. And I said, "I'm just done working hard. All I want to do is meet a great guy and have fun. I just want to enjoy life with someone." And Benjamin said that was the most beautiful thing any woman had ever said to him. He said he could tell I meant it, that it was authentic, that it was real, and he really felt it. And he said he went home. I didn't even know this until a year later. He went home and he took his profile down that same night. And we have been together ever since. I went away for 3 weeks to Vietnam. I didn't hear from him. Texting didn't exist. There were no emails, nothing. He said he marked it on his calendar when I was coming back. And he contacted me the day I got back and asked me out on our second date. And the rest is history. A year after we met, he proposed to me and told me to go look for a house for the two of us so that we could live together. We lived pretty far apart, about 45 minutes in traffic. He uprooted his entire practice. He lived and worked from home and he uprooted his entire practice so that the two of us could move in together. And then a year after that, we got married. And we have been together. We have been guardians of each other's souls for the last almost 20 years. We've been together. It'll be 19 years in September. So, yeah, I did the work. I figured out how to love and be loved, how to open my heart. to a wonderful man. I learned how to raise my bar. My bar had been very low, and I did the work on myself so that I believed I was worth it. And I went from being a woman who was deeply insecure to a woman who has it all, who has a brilliant career that I love, who has two lovely dogs. We just moved during the pandemic from Los Angeles to New Mexico to Santa Fe, where he and I have both started our lives over together. And this is what I can teach you how to do if you're struggling and suffering and you're sick and tired of wasting precious time going on dates with men who ghost you, who pull you into relationships and tell you everything you want to hear and grow cold and distant. If you're tired of not getting results, there's not a reason in the world you need to suffer. I have shown hundreds of women over the last 20 years since I met my husband, Benjamin, how to do this. And I can help you do this too. So if you really want to just get this solved, go to lisashield.com, listen to my 45-minute presentation. It's free. It'll just take 45 minutes of your life. And if you want to jump on a call with me, let's do that. There's not a reason in the world you should waste another moment of your life trying to figure this out. Just go to lisashield.com and let's get this solved. I'm Lisa Shield. I'm a love and relationship coach. There are a few coaches on the planet who have been doing this longer than me or who have as many success stories as me. If you want, yes, Reagan, I do work with men. I have started working with men. So please go to lisashield.com and let's jump on a call. I would love to talk to you. If you want to, we have a wonderful guy who's in the course right now. If you want to hear some praise, some of my success stories, go and look at my praise page. It's there's tons and there's loads of success stories there, and we're putting up new interviews all the time. But Reagan, I have coached men for the last 20 years, very successfully, by the way. And my husband is working with me, so he'll be mentoring you if you work with us. He will actually be doing your private coaching sessions. And I don't know of a better man than my husband. So please check me out. Tell your friends, and also if you want to learn, this is really important. We do on every Sunday, Benjamin and I, Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, we do a Facebook Live. No, Bonnie, it's the same program. We do a Facebook Live. We put the men and women together. Benjamin does some private coaching with the men, and then we have a Q&A call a week. We have a Q&A call that's co-ed for the men and women. I do a Facebook Live every Sunday morning. You don't want to miss this. I don't think there's anything like this. It's called Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. And I pick my husband's brain. So we talk about subjects that you will not hear men open up about. My husband will talk about all kinds of stuff, things that you just never hear men talking about in this way. So please come on and watch the Facebook Lives. They're phenomenal, phenomenal. Bonnie, I actually want to talk to you. I'm going to reach out to you because I want to get on a call. I had a great thought for us to get started sooner, and I really would love to talk to you about this. Because I think you're just wasting time, and there's no reason for you to do that. You're going to go out there and you're going to get hurt. You're going to waste time. You don't need to waste more time. So I'd love to jump on a call with you and figure out how we can get you going. Please, everybody, come on the Facebook Lives. Give me a thumbs up or a heart. I love to get the praise. It lets me know that I'm really hitting a chord and getting, reaching all of you. So please, 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 I love to see the praise. And I do these every single Monday from noon, usually from 12 to 12:30 Mountain Time. I went over today, but usually from 12 to 12:30. And then I also do a Facebook Live Tuesday night. That is from, I think we're going to move the time because of summer. Right now, it's at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And then we have our Sunday Facebook Live. So please come on, and lots of great advice. But again, the real work is working with a love coach who can take you by the hand and show you where your blind spots are so you don't waste another moment of your precious time. I'll see you all on Tuesday or on Sunday. I send love to everybody. Bye bye. And tell your friends. Please tell your friends.